Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. In today's video we're going to be talking about the Andor series, Skeleton Crew and more. So no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. We're going to begin with some exclusive comments made by Diego Luna for the Andor series. This is an exclusive from AV Club, and they asked Diego Luna who his favourite characters from the series are. He chose two, Stellan Skarsgård's character Luthen Rael, and of course Andor's trusty droid, B2EMO. In his own words he said, "Stellan is a man I admire, I consider a friend. I've been trying to work with him for a long time, you know. Being on set with him was perfect. It felt so right. It felt like I was doing something I owed to myself for a long time. He's a very humble actor. He arrives to find out what he's capable to do with you." And as for Diego's other favourite character in this prequel series, he says, quote, "B2 is a fantastic friend. It's the perfect droid. I have to say that it's a fantastic piece of design. First of all, the team behind it is amazing. He's very expressive with very little. He gives you so much. B2EMO is described as a very old and wary ground mech droid, a salvage assist unit, which in and of itself sounds iconic already. He might not be as cute as R2-D2, but his gritty look suits the show perfectly. I can't wait to see more of him." So now my dear Mandalorians, let's talk about the main reason you clicked on this video. Recently, Jon Favreau sat down with Entertainment Weekly to explain the expanding story that is The Mandalorian, and of course, its spin-offs, the Book of Boba Fett, the Ahsoka show, and now, Skeleton Crew. And this new interview is one of the only times outside of Star Wars Celebration where Skeleton Crew is acknowledged by name. In my previous video on the subject, we went through the various possibilities of what this show might be about, and what John Watts, Chris Ford, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni can bring to the table in a show that's marketed as Stranger Things in space. Well, in a new set of comments, Favreau teased that Skeleton Crew and future Mando spin-offs are going to bridge the gap between the New Republic era and the rise of the First Order. He says those 3 decades cannot be ignored, and while they've been explored to some extent in the novels, this lengthy and often unknown period of time is going to be given new life and new context in live action. John and Dave have probably had this mapped out for a long time, and there's no doubt in my mind they're also going to bring in elements from what was going to be Rangers of the New Republic. And even if right now they don't know the full details or the full extent of it, they know the direction they want to take it. In John's own words he said, "All of these shows that we've worked on exist within the same time frame, and there's 30 years that are somewhat unexplored, certainly on the screen." Now, a point of speculation worth speaking about is where Skeleton Crew is going to draw its inspiration from. Aside from Stranger Things, what about within the Star Wars universe? In Star Wars Legends, in the expanded universe, there is so much source material they could draw from, but one expanded universe novel in particular I want to talk about is Death Troopers. Now, I want to contextualize this with proper attention to Skeleton Crew. There are times with shows and movies when we don't really know too much yet, where you can glean a lot from its title, and such a fact could be the case with Skeleton Crew. Until now, we've all assumed this is the name of the crew themselves, the children navigating the unknown regions, and the name Skeleton itself could refer to a vessel like a starship. But having heard John Watts' very brief comments on the show, it seems as though this series is introducing horror. And the name Skeleton could be a double entendre that not only refers to the crew, but possibly something deadly that they come across. And as such, the show to a large extent could be a reformulation of a classic Star Wars book, a Legends novel titled Death Troopers. I'm not the first to suggest this, but it is an interesting theory that's worth exploring. Now, I should say if they do draw from it, it's not going to be exactly the same. Joe Schreiber's book focuses on pre-episode 4, whereas Skeleton Crew, of course, is post-Return of the Jedi. In the novel, Han and Chewie are on a prison barge that quickly gets overrun with a deadly virus. Those infected by the virus become zombies after they die, firing off errant blaster bolts as a means of chasing down their collective prey, who by the way largely manage to escape alive. And while this sort of virus is explored elsewhere in Legends, this is its original publication, and as a sort of very obscure horror-like galactic threat, this could definitely be reintroduced in Skeleton Crew. For those of us who are fans of the Clone Wars, you might remember the concept was explored to some extent in the episode Blue Shadow Virus from Season 1, an engineered bioweapon threatened the lives of many main characters. In Season 2's Legacy of Terror, the Geonosians are revealed to be able to act as drones while dead due to their connection to the collective hive mind, and it's even stated that Geonosian parasites can pass the condition to other species. This kind of thing, if done in live action, could be absolutely mortifying. Outside of Death Troopers and all of its gore, Skeleton Crew might play upon the very popular suspense genre that has seen recent prominence across streaming services. The reason I love the cloning plot idea idea that I mentioned last time is that in this show, where we have no real expectations, it can take on a more experimental nature, one that takes risks that we've not seen before in Star Wars. In other words, we see the roots sown in Mando Season 2 and the final product in The Rise of Skywalker. The comics also began exploring the concept, as might The Bad Batch and Jedi Survivor, but the period between the original trilogy and the sequels is a very long time to explore what could have happened. Give us something really twisted, maybe a crazy Strandcast or prototype who is the literal bane of the crew's existence. Maybe they come across something they weren't supposed to see, and so the whole show they chase down. And while we assume Jude Law's character is going to be some sort of heroic, majestic force user or mentor figure, he might be the primary antagonist. What if these children, just like Grogu, were once upon a time part of the experiments? Even more awesome would be a show where these force-sensitive children cross paths, they form a crew, but they can't really remember where they came from or who they are. They might be brainwashed escapees of an Imperial laboratory who go on a multi-season mission to discover where they came from before they were kidnapped by the Empire for testing. Any and all these possibilities sound really awesome, and they all scream horror if done right. Now, one final consideration, and I suppose fan theory I want to put out there, is one I've not seen mentioned elsewhere. The famous horror and science fiction writer Stephen King has a novel called Skeleton Crew, and having an inkling about the way that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni name things, I figured this book might have been some kind of inspiration for the story, so let's see how it could connect. Well, the first most obvious thing is the fact that Skeleton Crew as a book is a collection of short fiction stories. So maybe each of the chapters of Skeleton Crew the show might focus on each of the children. Each of the episodes could be separate but also connected by focusing on the children one at a time. Each chapter could be a separate child and their stories leading up to 9ABY, which of course is when the show is set. My favourite story of this collection is The Mist, one of the most influential psychological horrors of all time. This story focuses on the morning following a thunderstorm in Maine. An unusually thick and straight-edged cloud of mist spreads across the small town of Bridgeton, and with it comes an ecosystem of deadly creatures. The source of the mist is never determined, but there are indications of links to experiments conducted by the US military. Now, if this story, as well as others in the collection called Skeleton Crew, had anything to do with inspiring the Star Wars story, the parallels are quite easy to see if you read between the lines. The storm and the deadly creatures are symbolic for the approach of the Grysk. These guys exist in unknown space and they're bad news. They're explored a little bit in Timothy Zahn's Thrawn books, and these are the canon version of the Yuuzhan Vong. Now, the Mando-verse endgame theory states that this is how the Mandalorian and its spin-offs will come to an end, with our heroes fighting a galactic-scale war in the unknown regions against the Grysk, who Thrawn and the Chiss Ascendancy had known about and warning about for years. Another short story by Stephen King in this collection is The Monkey. This story often goes under the radar given Stephen King's immense success. This story is a much lesser-known one, but nonetheless has some relevance. The story talks about two young brothers, Peter and Dennis, who find a cymbal-banging monkey toy in the attic of their great-uncle's house. Soon it's revealed that their father Hal discovered the toy monkey inside a chest. The monkey is cursed, and every time it claps, someone close to Hal dies. Hal was tormented by the monkey as a child. Now, this cursed item which two brothers come across, which they don't know is linked to their father and a curse, could very well have parallels in Star Wars, maybe a Sith holocron or something of the sorts. If this series is going to have connections to the dark side, and maybe darker genres like horror, this could be very appropriate. Who knows, I'm just speculating. But if we're to say that Skeleton Crew is going to be a Star Wars horror series, then we've got to look to Stephen King's Skeleton Crew and the various stories within it to determine how this series might have been named. But of course, it's all conjecture. So those are just some thoughts I had, my dear friends. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I just wanted to get out a few theories, get your thoughts on them, and we're just gonna have to wait and see when the show drops in 2024. I can't wait, it's currently in production. So share your thoughts down below, guys. If you enjoyed this video, as always, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.